So I guess home court advantage in this series just flat out doesn't matter because the road team has been victorious in every single game of this series between the Clippers and the Mavericks so far. After the Mavericks lose this one on Sunday night in Dallas, we are now locked up, tied up at 2 games apiece, headed back to the Staples Center in Los Angeles for a pivotal Game 5 on Wednesday. This is Dallas Mavericks Today by Chat Sports. I am Chase Sr. Let's break down this Game 4 Mavericks loss and do a little Game 5 preview. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George for the Clippers were absolutely fantastic. The Claw going in for 29 points, PG-13 going in for 20, many of those coming in the first half. Luka Doncic gave it a go at that neck strain that was problematic and bothersome for him really throughout this entire game. Wasn't his efficient self going 9 of 24 from the floor, still able to put together a 19.6 rebound performance. For Mavs fans, they finally got a good game from Kristaps Porzingis. He scored 18 points, brought down 5 rebounds, and anytime Boban Marjanovic is putting up big numbers at 12 and 6, that either means that the Mavericks were winning in a blowout or they were losing in a blowout. This one, the latter, as the Mavericks go down 106-81. Some of my Game 4 observations, shout out to Luka Doncic for at least trying to play tonight. You could see that neck strain was really bothering him. It was giving him kind of cramps throughout the game, and he just wasn't right. You could tell he was in a lot of pain, but for a guy in his early 20s who's the face of this franchise to show some toughness, show some resolve, and to at least try and fight through it, shout out to Luka. Let's hope that he's back and normal for Game 5 because that game is going to be huge. Kawhi Leonard, on the other hand, he was incredible, and this is why the Clippers signed this guy and gave him that massive 2-year deal. He looked like the playoff Toronto Raptor Kawhi Leonard, who carried that franchise to an NBA championship. Right from the tip, you could tell he was trying to make a statement, and he did so with 29 points. Paul George, on the other hand, it has been well documented that he consistently underperforms and chokes in the playoffs, but in Games 3 and 4, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George have been dominant, and Paul George was looking like playoff P from his Indiana Pacer days, not bubble P, who was a disaster last year. Mavericks, also, outside of Luka Doncic, they have to be better. They were horrid shooting the basketball tonight. 31 of 89 from the floor and just ice cold from deep. That's not going to win you any games moving forward in this series. And I mentioned it off the top. Let's just throw home court advantage out the window because the road team has won every game of this series, and it hasn't even really been close. The Mavericks able to put together 2 really impressive and confident wins in Games 1 and 2, and then the Clippers in Games 3 and 4 have been lights out. So maybe it's good that the Mavericks are going back to the Staples Center where they had a lot of success early in this series to try to end this 2-game skid. So I talk about that and I transition to this. How are you feeling about the Mavs right now? Are you confident? Or are you worried? Type C if you are indeed confident. Type W if you're worried. I'm going to lean toward confident because I still think Luka Doncic is the best player in this series. Now, if you watch Game 4, you wouldn't come to that conclusion, but you'd be saying that without knowing that Luka was really struggling with that neck injury. 19 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists on 9 of 24 shooting. And you could tell anytime he tried to get physical down low, he almost shied away from contact, which isn't really what you see from Luka Doncic. Usually he seeks that out, but he didn't want to tweak that neck injury by any means. And I talk about Kawhi and Paul George. In Games 3 and 4, they have lived up to the billing, and they have earned their money. Kawhi, 29, 10, 3, just lights out shooting. Paul George, 29 and 3, 3 of 6 from deep. And both of these guys came out with a purpose right from the tip, trying to make a statement, and they were able to establish momentum right from the get-go because this game, really from the early going, wasn't close at all, and the Mavericks were getting shredded defensively by Kawhi and Paul George because of Luka Doncic's struggles early on, because of that neck injury. The Mavericks' offense just wasn't the same. Tim Hardaway really has to step up because he couldn't buy a bucket at all in Game 4. So as we look ahead to Game 5, those are some of the changes, some of the things to look out for as we progress in this series. Game 5 going to take place Wednesday, 10 o'clock Eastern, Staples Center in Los Angeles. Maybe the Mavericks are able to regain their confidence because in games 1 and 2, they were really, really good. Games 3 and 4 in front of a nearly sold-out crowd of around 17,000 people. A lot of people went home disappointed in the Mavs. So who you got in Game 5 in this pivotal matchup on Wednesday? Type DAL for the Dallas Mavericks. Type LAC for the Los Angeles Clippers. Be sure to get your votes in the comment section below. Here at Chat Sports, we're with you, Mavs fans, through the good times and the bad times, breaking it all down throughout the playoffs as well as the offseason. So make sure you're subscribed to Mavericks Today for the best news and rumors here on YouTube surrounding your Dallas Mavericks. And turn on those notifications when you do subscribe. That way, anytime we do release a video, you will be notified. So hit that big red button that says subscribe down below or go to youtube.com/MavsTV. Clippers-Mavs Game 5 Wednesday night at the Staples Center in Los Angeles. Let's do a little preview and see what the Mavericks have to do to get back on track in this series, because they were really good in the first 2 games, not as good in the latter 2 games. Maybe they can regain that confidence going back to the place where they look confident playing in both games 1 and 2. In Game 1, Mavericks won it 113-103. Luka Doncic went in for a triple-double, 31 points, 10 rebounds, 11 assists. Tim Hardaway Jr. was hitting big shots, 21 points, 4 rebounds on 5 of 9 shooting from deep. Even Dorian Finney-Smith, 18 points, 5 rebounds, 4 of 5 shooting. But in the games 3 and 4 that the Mavericks have lost, you'll see that they didn't have the same bench production as they did in games 1 and 2, because in game 2, that bench production was also there. Now, of course, Luka Doncic went off again, 39, 7 and 7. He was once again magical, but there you see it. Tim Hardaway going in for 28 points on 6 of 8 shooting from long range. And Kristaps Porzingis, he was somewhat solid, 20 points, 3 steals, 8 of 12. But in those first 2 games, the bench was really good, and they were able to outlast and survive Kawhi Leonard and Paul George going off for, in Game 2, 41 points and 28 points respectively. Games 3 and 4, though, you've seen the Clippers look like the dominant team, and Steve Ballmer has to be really happy about the acquisitions of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, because they have lived up to the billing. They did so in Game 3. Kawhi going in for 36 points, Paul George 29 points, and Luka Doncic was once again great. 44 points, 9 rebounds, 9 assists. But other than that, Jalen Brunson, he did what he does, and Maxi Kleber was just okay. And then as we pivot and look at Game 4, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, as we talked about, just really, really good for this Clippers team, and have responded to head coach Tyronn Lue just saying, relax, everybody. We are going to be okay. Well, do you think the Mavericks are going to be okay? Can they still win this series? Type Y for yes, type N for no. Let me know how you're thinking as we move forward in this series about the Mavericks and if they can still win this series. My keys for Game 5 coming up, Dallas defense has to be a lot better, because Kawhi Leonard and Paul George have carved them up. It hasn't really been a competition at all. And when guys like Reggie Jackson are putting together really solid performances, you have work to do defensively, but the key focus is going to be at least limiting Kawhi and Paul George. Most of the time, you're not going to stop those guys, but at least limit them. Also, got to keep an eye out on Luka Doncic's neck strain, causing him some spasms, and I don't know if that's contributed to him being horrendous from the free throw line, but if Game 5 is coming down to the wire, and it's really close, and Luka Doncic has to go to the free throw line, given his struggles at the stripe this series, somewhat of a concern. The guy is an all-world player. You could probably make the argument he's top 5 right now, but the free throws needs to put some work in at the stripe and just has to flat out be better. That's a big concern for me, as is that neck injury, but hopefully that progresses and gets better. I'm worried that the Clippers are also gaining some momentum as well as confidence. Games 1 and 2, Mavericks were in the Clippers' heads. And that went back to that postseason series last year in the bubble that nearly went the distance because Luka put the team on his back. And from that point on, Luka has been in the Clippers' heads, and their confidence, speaking of the Clippers, has been dashed. But after going on the road and putting together 2 impressive performances, road victories in front of a hostile crowd, I think the Clippers are somewhat confident now, and that's somewhat dangerous. Can Kristaps Porzingis go crazy? He had a solid game 4 in a losing effort. He's been okay in this series. You can't just rely on Luka to go in for a triple-double night in and night out, though. Kristaps has to live up to that contract, live up to the unicorn status. I just want him to go crazy. How about 30 points and 15 boards in Game 5? I'm looking into the crystal ball. I want that to ring true, so I'm trying to speak it into existence. You see what I'm saying here? And my last point, Tim Hardaway Jr. Games 1 and 2, he was phenomenal, looking like one of the best sharpshooters across the league. Games 3 and 4, he has gone cold, and because of that, the byproduct of Tim Hardaway not knocking down outside shots, Mavericks offense has really struggled. So I talk about Kristaps, and I ask you this question. Let's speak it into existence, people. Will Kristaps Porzingis have a breakout game in Game 5? Mavericks could really, really use it. Type 1 for yes, type 2 for no. Get your votes in, and let's just make it happen.